Okay, I started recording. So, the main thing I'm going to try to get across in this tutorial is the first part will be setting up the UVs and then ID maps within Maya. And then the second part will be taking that into Substance and utilizing said ID maps and the setup process in Substance to be able to do that. And yeah, so if the Substance part doesn't concern you, you could just turn it off. So that's how I'm gonna go about this. So we'll start off in Maya first. I'm using the candle whatchamacallit scene, shrine scene, I guess. And we'll lay out UVs on the candles, or just one candle. We don't have to do everything. And then I'll export them, bring them into Substance, set up the ID maps, and we'll do that. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my desktop. Okay, just get that going over here. So the first thing you want to do, what's going on here? Quit that. Is make sure there's no UV shells on the object that you're working on. Just you want to start fresh. So there are UV shells, probably just auto-generated or whatever, but we're going to just delete them and start fresh. Now, what I like to do, in the earlier call, Jeremy was talking about, like cylindrical projections and spherical projections and stuff like that. And that's like, I guess technically like I don't want to say the right way because there's no real right way to do it, but like that's the taught way. I don't like using those. I think it's overly complicated. You end up with a bunch of just random UV shells everywhere, and then you have to start like stitching stuff together. And I like to start with no seams. So what I like to do is I'll grab the object and we'll do it because these are two separate objects. We'll do the base first and then we'll do the candle after. So I like to grab the object, get a good 3/4 camera view. We'll go create. And I like to use these camera-based projections. And what that does is it shoots rays from the camera, and you can see it here, exactly where your camera is positioned. But the reason I like doing this is because it has no seams on it. So then you could go in and add seams where you want, and you don't have to like stitch stuff. It's easier for me at least. So that's how I do it. Okay, so right here we have the UV shell. We can't unfold it yet because there's literally no seams on it. So what we're gonna do is go to edge. This should have a ring here. Poly modeling. Like that. That. Edge. What is going on there? Edge. And delete every other edge. Okay. Now, want to think about where this is going to be placed in the scene. This could be rotated any which way, so I'm not going to think too hard about it, but you want to think about where you want that seam. Typically, what I'll do is I'll just grab one of these. I will grab, let's say, one of these. And one on the inside. Grab this. So we'll grab that. Let's add a cut. And you can see where the seams are with the white lines. And let's see. And then we want to grab one of these. So let's go from here to here. And do that again. All right, now let's see what this looks like when we unfold it. So you can grab this, you could unfold or Control U. That'll spread everything out. You can see our shells. Let's see that. Yep, so you can see, so this is the bottom one. This is bleeding through the other side, but that is right here. That's this shell. You got this one, which I'm not sure if it really unfolded properly. There's a little bit of warping, I think. No, I mean, I think that's good. Okay, get rid of that. Now, grab all of this and lay it out. So Control L. I have this preset to lay out across 4 tiles because that's the way I like to do it. You can set it up however you like. Realistically, this piece doesn't need more than 1 tile, but it's not really a big deal. But lay it out. And let's see, I'm going to take this piece and I will grab, where's the, and under transform, you'll have your textile density. So I'm going to select this piece because this is like the biggest piece really. I'm going to get that size. So we'll have a textile density of 157 and change. And then I'll select all the rest of them and set it. And I'll sort of resize it. And you can see that the squares here are roughly all the same size. They don't have to be perfect. And you could also just scale it by hand if you want, but this is easy. You'll see there's a little bit of warping in here, but it's not, I don't think that's going to be an issue once that's in Substance. So all of these pieces, I'll just probably just move into 1 tile. So we'll do that. We'll do that. Do that. We'll do that. This one will scale down a little bit by hand. And the idea here is nothing could be overlapping. You don't want overlapping really anything. You don't want it extending past the grid. You don't want the shells overlapping on top of each other. They all need their own space. Okay, so I think that's looking good. Now, for the ID map, what we're going to want to do, we're going to do it by polygroup. So anything that is on the same mesh will be its own polygroup, right? So in terms of this, let's open this up, spin these down. And we'll leave the candle holder as is, because I don't think that really needs a mask. But for the candle, what I'll do is the stem, I'll set a different polygroup for the stem and for the candle wax. Now, in reality, you wouldn't really need to do this because this would be easy enough just to mask in Substance. It's just like, grab that and mask. But for simplicity's sake, I'll do it here. Also, this geometry is a little dense. Hold on. Let's grab that. Let's just relax these out a little bit. Just to get some nice, like, sort of spacing. I didn't want all these stacked up. Okay. All right, cool. Let's get out of that. Now, let's grab we'll grab these faces. So what we're going to want to do is separate the wick from the rest of the candle. Oops. Those are pretty dense too. I don't know what's going on there. No, I'm not going to worry about it. So we're going to go, what was it? Is it extract? I never remember. Extract. And mesh. Separate. Detach. No? Okay, hold on. Okay, so now we have two different surfaces. And let's just check the hierarchy there. So we'll call this candle, and we'll call this wick. So let's do the same thing there. Get a nice 3/4 view. We'll create camera base. And this we could edge. Okay, that doesn't have a bottom. Very good. So we could probably just grab that one. Did it go all the way around? I believe it did. Cool. So we'll add a cut there. Did that not cut? Cut, I say. So this is, I think, a bug. Sometimes you don't get that white line, but you can see it did make the cut. It's 2 shells, so you might run into that, but yeah. So it did make the cut. There's 2 shells. It's just not showing for whatever reason. And then we'll cut one down the side to unwrap it. We'll do that. And we'll cut this one. And cut. Shell. Let's select these shells. Control U. What's going on here? Select the shells. Okay. And we're just going to want that to fit. So we'll do that. Now we're going to get that. And we're going to set it to that. And let's do the wick. So same deal, camera-based projection. Let's do that and grab that. We'll go down where and cut. Control U. And we'll set that to the same density. So now we could grab, so let's just grab all of these. Go to object mode, grab them all. And what we could actually do is grab all of these shells, lay them out, Control L, and we'll set everything to that same density. Actually, let's resize this one a little bit. So we'll get that. And each one doesn't have to be on its own tile, so I'm just going to rearrange some stuff. And this one over here. This one over here. Okay, we'll do it that. You could lay it out however you like. You could put your seams wherever you like. I always tend to just kind of grab the middle of like a bevel or something, or you know, wherever makes sense. Okay, so now if we look in our outliner for, where is this? I'm gonna just delete history. Okay, so we have one surface that is the candle holder. We got the wick, and we got the candle. So what we could do is grab all of the, go to object mode. Let's grab all of that. File, export selection. And you could set up. We'll do an FBX. And actually, let me smooth that. Export selection. So with this, you're not going to want smoothing groups, and you're not going to want smooth mesh. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but for some reason, with FBXs, if you have these checked, it doesn't bring in the smooth mesh. So we'll do it that way. If you use a USD, you could subdivide it in substance. FBXs, you can't. So let's just add this to my temporary folder right here. And we'll go candle export. And we will export selection. Okay, we'll close. Now, in Substance, actually my music ended. Yes, I'm still listening. We'll go new. Go PBR metallic roughness. Let's go 2K for now. Go here. Open that. You'll want to use this UV tile workflow. That's for UDIM tiles, so make sure that's selected. We don't need auto unwrap because we did that. We don't need to import cameras. This we want that. Gonna go aces. This is going to be, it was supposed to be like, that's utility. This is color space stuff. I'm not going to worry about it for the purposes of this tutorial. Okay. Okay. So bring that in. Now, when you go to bake, you're going to want to, let's go 2K. I usually use 4K, but just for this, we're doing 2K. And you'll see we have our 3 tiles over here. So if we go back to Maya, so these are the 3 tiles. It's being represented here. I like to just check all this stuff off. I like to make that. Do that. We'll do that. Okay, cool. So the main thing to think is over here in the ID map section, under color source, we're going to want to use mesh ID polygroup. So you'll have that selected. The other ones are like if you could assign different materials, and that'll create the ID map. However, that also creates texture set, like various texture sets, meaning you'll have multiple materials to assign to the object once you bring it into either Maya or Unreal, instead of just having one material and masking it. So I don't know. I found this is the best one to use. I asked Jeremy, he seems to agree. You could just use hue shift there. And then under common settings, you're going to want to use some sort of anti-aliasing. I'm just going to we'll use 16x. Depending on your computer, I could easily do 64. If you have your own desktop computer, you can probably do 64. Just depends. But we'll just do 16 for now. And I think that's it. And you can just go and bake selected textures. So that's going to do its thing. Okay, so now that's done. We go to painting. I don't like this view. I'm going to just do 3D only. And let's see if it worked. So we could go down and select ID. And there. So when you have the ID option selected, you could see the colors that Substance chose to assign it. And we had 3 different things. We had the candle holder, the actual candle, and then the wick, and each one has its own color. And what this means is you'll be able, instead of having to mask stuff off, you could just drag, and I'm just going to drag like anything in here. So do we have like a brass, metal? What is this? Stylized raw metal, sure. Let's get out of this. We'll go to material. And you should be able to just drag and drop stuff. Why is that not working? Yeah. So that doesn't matter if you're doing it by polygroup, because if we go back to Maya, there are different surfaces. Like, so they all have to, each group has to be its own, like, one surface. You can't have like a group of multiple surfaces in order for this to work. So if you want something to be on one like ID map group, it all has to be the same surface. No, I'm not talking about materials. I'm talking about actually mesh surfaces. Material could be anything. It doesn't have to be different. It can be different. It doesn't matter in this, because if we go, let's go back to the bake settings. We'll go to the ID map, because it's looking for the mesh ID. So it's ignoring whatever material you have on there. So if you wanted to do it by the material color, you would select material color. But what happens when you do it this way is it'll create, so let's get out of this. It'll create, see how I have one standard surface, one shader right here? So when you go to export, there'll just be one like for this whole object, there'll just be one material that is made that you just drop onto the object. If you do it by material color, no, it'll work. I mean, it works fine. If you do it by material color, however, it'll have, in this case, it'll have three different texture sets. So you would have three different materials that Substance would make that you would have to apply to the object instead of just one. Yeah, like so once you export it back into, let's say, Maya for right now, and you go to build the material, the nodes for it, instead of having to do it once for, in this case, once for the candle base, once for the candle, and once for the wick, it would just be one material that would cover all three of these things. Yeah, because it doesn't create more texture sets. So if you did it by material color, it would create three texture sets, which would equate to three different materials you would have to apply after you exported it. That makes sense? Figured it out. Control Shift. You just hit Control Shift, and you drag it onto an object, and that you can see it. It'll select the mesh. So let's go back to our lit view, which we are on, and we'll add that to this. What is this? I don't know. We could add a rusty candle, sure. And then we'll do that one. And then I don't know, sure. Do that. So yeah, so that's the ID map process. It makes it a lot easier to just drag and drop materials on there, because otherwise to do this, you would have to grab this, add a black mask, and then, it did this because I already have the ID map set up, but you would grab the black mask and sort of paint in, or you could select, UV chunks or whatever to do it that way. And on more complicated objects, especially if they're not like straight edge loops and stuff like that, it could be really time consuming and really tedious. So this is just an easy way to expedite things like that. Kevin, you said you had a question? Actually, hold on. Hold on 1 second. I just realized I'm not capturing your. Okay. Ask a question again.
So can you show what it would look like bringing this texture with these mesh IDs back into Maya? Look how that would look
Yep.
like then, because I don't know if I'm just confused, or I guess I just want to see how the process is and see how it differs from like doing it like traditionally from how we've learned from class.
Yeah, totally. So the one thing just to take note of here is the texture set. So there's only one texture set, right? For all of these three surfaces. You have one surface for the wick. And when I say surface, I'm talking about like mesh surfaces, not like material surfaces. But You have one mesh for the wick, one mesh for the candle, and one mesh for the candle holder, candle stick, or whatever these things are called. So we'll just go File, Export Textures, and you'll see it'll come in as standard surface 1. Why did my music just end? Okay, there we go. We will use there's an Arnold. We'll do that. We'll do 2K. We could leave this at PNG 8-bit for now. Let's go to Arnold AI Standard, and I think some of these have to get changed to like utility something or other. I'll leave these for now because I'll just get them into Maya. There's something you have to do with the Arnold AI Standard thing, and I forget what it is. But basically, it's, you know how you always have to go and change like sRGB to utility in Maya for anything that's not a color map?
Yeah.
This supposedly takes care of that. Oops, shit. I just duplicated a bunch of stuff. If it's set up properly, but doesn't matter. So this is what we're going to get. We're going to get, this is for each tile because I had 3 tiles set up. So we'll go, let's set it. I'm going to create a folder here. Let's go candle, whatever. I'll select that. Okay, I'll go back into Maya. It's, and do I have my substance stuff loaded? Okay, so we're gonna select all of our stuff. And actually, let me just, so we'll see, we'll look at what we have here. So we should have 3 of each one. But the important thing to note is that these are not on separate materials. These are the tiles. So you can see them listed as 1001, 1002, 1003 for each one, right? So I'll get out of that. We'll hit apply and bring up our Hypershade. Was it this one? I believe it was this one. So this is our, what was that? So that's,
Also, side note, how are you mapping all that out? Because I know there's like a button you can click to map it out, but it doesn't work for me for some reason. I don't know if it's just
okay,
the Maya version I'm using.
I'll do it. I'll do it again. Okay, I'm also, actually I'll leave those. Let me see what is this? Let's clean that up. Okay, so basically what I'm doing, right, is so if you have to have the substance plugin loaded in. So if you don't have it loaded in, you'll go down to Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager. Just type Substance. and you want to make sure all of these are loaded in. Sometimes if you have, I believe it's Houdini, or it might be Nuke. One of those two programs creates a conflict in the install location, so you'll have to figure that out. It's just like where the two things get installed, it creates a conflict. If you don't have those installed, then it's not a problem. But you just want to make sure these are all loaded in. Then you should get a Substance tab up here, and you'll see this this icon with the 3D squares to a sphere. So like the textures to a material. That's basically what that's showing. So you'll click that, and you'll select multiple maps. Your workflow in this will be Maya, but this depends on, or Arnold rather. But if you're using a different render, select that. So you'll select multiple, and then you'll go to where you exported your textures to. And as long as they're all one texture set, so it could be separate UDIM tiles, but all one texture set, you'll just grab all of them, hit select. You'll see it'll plug this one in for base color, this one in for the normal, metallic, so on and so forth. We don't have emission and we didn't do an ambient inclusion on this. So those are blank. And when you hit apply, you'll usually see like some error down here, but when you go into your Hypershade, it'll create a new material. So we'll just graph that. And when you use the plugin, it automatically connects everything. So you can see here that automatically just connected where everything needed to go. You could do this manually if you wanted, but I mean, why? Now, the one thing it didn't do, because I didn't set it up when I exported it from Substance, is to automatically detect like what these are going to be. So you could already see this is base color. This should be sRGB. And, I think it might have did it actually. Let's see. So yeah, so color space is raw on that. That's cool. Raw. You could also tell too if it's sRGB or raw by the color of this little icon. So the sRGB one's going to be more saturated, and the raw one is going to be a little desaturated. So you could quickly tell it at a glance. But what we do have to do is tell this to use UDIM tiles. So where it says UV tiling mode, just use UDIM Mari, and that should detect it. So it sees right here, detected 3. I've never had an issue just using this drop-down menu. However, if you wanted to do it like, I don't know, the hard way, you could add this string into the thing. So like, was this less than UDIM greater than? I don't know, whatever. Caret, UDIM, other caret. And that'll do the same thing. But you could just use the drop down. And we're going to want to do that for every one. And it should show 3 tiles found. For this case, if you had more than that, it should show the amount that you have. So we'll do that. And we'll do that. And I think that's all of them. We got 3. We got 3. We got 3. And we got 3. So what we're going to want to do is grab our candle and assign the material. So we're going to assign material to selection. And let's just throw in a light. Let's do like a, I don't know, physical sky, whatever. And so in the settings. I don't want to do that at 3K. HD 540. GPU. Okay, we'll just leave it like that. This might take a minute for the first one to load in the stuff. Nope, get out of there. Get out of there. Where's my, oh, there it is. Okay. You know, I don't think I turned on. I mean, we'll see. And because I use my GPU, it's just got to load stuff into the VRAM because I recently installed new drivers. So just give it a second. But this is just a one-time thing. So while this is loading, did you have any questions for the for how I did that?
Yeah, there's a part I'm still kind of confused on. So for when you're creating the mesh ID groups in Substance, you're making one individual group with all of the geo pieces in that group, correct?
So it's 3 groups in terms of the ID. So if we'll go back to Substance, and I'll go to the ID map.
No, that's not what I mean.
Oh.
Go to Maya. So that export selection you made, it's a group within its own in the outliner, correct? Like it's one single group.
So it's one group, but Substance will ignore the groups that you have. It'll build the poly groups based on the surface, like the mesh. So it would have to be its own mesh for it to be its own poly group. So it ignores whatever group. It could be grouped however you want it. If you want it to be a separate ID like mesh, it has to be its own surface.
I guess I'm just a little confused on the wording on that. Like,
so let me go get rid of that for a second. We'll stop the render. Let's go to the wireframe view. So if we were to do, say we had this candlestick, but it was made from 2 different pieces. Like say this top part was a separate piece from the bottom part and we exported it that way. And then we built the ID map based off the poly group. Each one of those 2 pieces that we just described would be its own like ID group. It would Substance would assign it a different color because it's a different piece. It's a different surface. So that's why you want, like, if you want one thing to be its own ID group, it needs to be a complete surface. So for example, so we had 3 different surfaces, right? Or yeah, so we had this, we had the candle, and we had the wick, right? But say we took all of those and and we combined everything, right? We did this. So now you could see this is one surface, and then we exported this and we assigned it by polygroup. In Substance,
it would be one poly group.
It would just all be one. So that's why you want to designate the polygroups by the surface. So in this case, we designated it by candle, like the wax part, the metal part, and the wick part. And that created our 3 polygroups.
But it's one group, one geo group is what I'm trying to like.
Substance ignores the actual group itself. It just looks at the actual surfaces, the actual meshes. So you could have it grouped however you want. But if you want it to ID, the way you would designate it in terms of the ID map is by whole surface. So say you wanted like, so say you had two different surfaces here. Like let's clone this. And we'll go face, and let's just get rid of those. And we'll clone this again. And we'll get rid of, we'll get rid of these. So say we had this, right? And we wanted to export this, and we wanted this to all be one map because these we were going to, why is that all the way up there? What the fuck's going on? So say we're doing this, right? And we wanted to do the same thing that we did for the other one, but this candle holder is made of two pieces. If we exported it like this, each one of these two pieces would be its own polygroup. So you would want to grab this and combine them so they're one polygroup. And then this whole thing would be one color, one ID color.
So how are you combining all three of those things to bring them into Substance as one?
So it can,
Object.
if it can be a group if you want it to. So you could grab that and group it. You don't have to. You could also just select them. I'm just exporting selected. So it'll grab.
And you're just selecting each one individually.
Yeah, or you could just group them if you want. Like I said, Substance will ignore the groups. So if we go into this group, we'll see the three surfaces, and these will be our three groups, our 3ID colors. Mm-hmm. So you could group it however you want to, but when it generates when it assigns the colors to the different ID portions that you previously designated, it looks for individual surfaces. So each one of these would be its own ID group. And then this is just for convenience to export everything at once.
And then, so you were saying that it doesn't matter what materials are assigned to each object, correct?
Yeah. So we could do that
each group.
We could do that the other way. So say let's assign a new material. We'll do a bunch of fongs. And we'll make this one. We'll make this one red. And then we'll grab this. Fong. We'll make this one blue. We'll grab that. And we'll make this one green. So if we wanted to do it by material color, we have these three different materials assigned, right? So then you could just grab that. You could go File, Export Selection. And we'll name this Candle 2. Now we'll go New. Okay. Go candle 2. PBR metallic roughness, UV tile workflows on. Okay, and we'll discard that. So now we're back at the other thing, right? So we go to bake the textures. I'm not going to go through all of this stuff, but on your ID map, instead of selecting Mesh ID polygroup, we'll select material color, right? So this is going to look for the material colors. And we'll bake selected textures. There's other stuff you want to do, but I'm not going to do all that for right now. So return to painting mode. Now you could see what happened here. Before we had one texture set on the previous one, right? But now you can see we have 3, and each one has its own set. So Fong 1, which was the base, was spread across 3 tiles. Fong 2, which was the candle, is spread across 2 tiles. And Fong 3, which is the wick, is spread across 1 tile. Now, if we were to export this, so go, I'm not going to sign it, but we'll just go export textures and look at the exports. We will actually have 3 different materials that we'll have to assign in Maya. 1 for the wick, 1 for the candle, and 1 for the base. And that's what I mean by texture sets, is having these 3 there. It adds complexity and mess that I don't think we need. And you wouldn't be able to just assign one whole thing. So we would have to generate 3 different materials in Maya and assign them to the appropriate areas of the model because of how this works. Does that make sense?
Right. That's my question was how, like, so you can't use mesh IDs with multiple different materials then? Like you can't use the mesh ID method.
No, you could. It's not. So when it's generating the ID map, it's ignoring whatever material you have on it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't care. So you could have whatever materials you want on there. It's not going to look at material color for generating the ID map. It's just going to look at the actual mesh itself, how many surfaces it contains, and it'll generate it based off of that.
So I could still do the same process that you were doing earlier. I just changed that material color to mesh ID and it'll still work the same way then, even if the materials are set like this.
Well, at what point in the texturing phase are you referring to?
Like right here. So we have 3 different materials assigned to this selection, this object basically.
Mm-hmm.
You said that we can still use the mesh ID polygroup thing even if these materials are different, correct?
Yes, but why would it have materials on it
I know
already?
that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. Like, but I'm trying to figure out the most efficient way to do this. So I wouldn't want to have different materials on this selection. I would just want them all to be like standard surface 1 or something.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't care. Like you could have whatever you want on it, and it's going to ignore whatever you do and build. It's going to generate the ID map based off of what you designated as polygroups. It doesn't care about materials. But in this case, it's going to, when you export these, when you're done texturing it and you're exporting it back into Maya or Unreal, it's going to create a material for you to apply to it. So whatever material's on there already is going to get overwritten anyway.
Okay. So then my next question is, how would we want to go about naming the different the materials for each object, considering the fact that we need to bring it into Unreal?
Can you rephrase your question?
Okay, so we can't. Well, I haven't tried this out personally, so I don't know.
Mhm.
If we put textures on an object in Maya, so like say we like UV'd an object, we did all that, we brought in a substance, painted it, brought it back in, and put the textures on the object in Maya.
Mm-hmm.
Can we export all of that into Unreal, or we can't bring the textures into Unreal like that?
So you're not going to want to do that for one major reason. Arnold uses a different setup than Unreal would. So if we export these textures, you're going to want to use, where is it? It's Unreal Packed. This would be for subsurface scattering. If we might have subsurface scattering. I don't know, in terms of like skin and stuff like that. Or even the candle would have a little bit of subsurface. But for simplicity's sake, don't think about this one right now. Do Unreal Engine 4, or this works in 5 too, Packed. And what that does is it adds 2 of the maps into one sort of channel. And then you would, in that other video, I was talking about using virtual textures and stuff like that. You would designate that in Unreal. So basically what I'm trying to say is Unreal uses a different method of organizing its textures than Arnold does. So you wouldn't be able to set it up in Arnold and then bring it into Unreal because there's fundamental differences in how those two renderers work. So you'd want to export these for Unreal. You wouldn't want to export them for Arnold. Like you would export them for Arnold if you want to do like a test render just to see how it looks real quick. But once you're ready to bring the textures into Unreal, you would export them as Unreal Packed or Unreal Subsurface Scattering Packed.
So with that in mind, does the mesh ID method change in any way, or is there anything we need to keep in mind when doing that and bringing that into Unreal?
No, because once you do it this way, because what you're doing, so think of it as like steps. So step 1 is setting up your model to be ready to accept the textures. Step 2 would be baking your ID map in Substance and actually texturing it in Substance. And then step 3 would be bringing it into Unreal. Because you are exporting, and if you do it the polygroup way, you're just going to have one material to assign to the whole object, and you just do it that way. And I in the other video I explained how to use set it up to use Udemy tiles and the virtual textures and all that stuff. But yeah, it doesn't. The ID map is for the texture artists to assign materials quickly and efficiently. The other programs aren't looking at the ID map. The other programs don't care about the ID map. They're not even going to use it. This is just for the people texturing in Substance to not have to mask stuff all the time. That make sense?
Yeah. I'm just trying to like make sure every step makes sense to me. So in the first demo of the first candle set that you had, you only had one was it layer set or texture set?
Yeah,
in
one texture
Substance?
set.
So
Yeah.
how does that work in terms of Udemy tiles? Because did you have all of the stuff in one Udemy tile? All of the UVs?
It was in three different Udemy tiles, but it was in one texture set. So it was one. So if we go back to the Hypershade here, let's clear that off and graph that. you'll see you just have one material, AI standard surface 1, to assign to the whole object. And then each one of these will have 3 tiles. Now, if you did it the other way, what would happen is you would have 3 materials, one for each group that you designated, that you would have to apply individually. And each one would also have its own tiles. So this is just a simplified way of just having one material to assign to the entire object instead of having to assign one material to the wick, one material to the candle, one material to the base.
That's my question. So I'm talking about in Substance though. If you go back to the Substance file,
Mm-hmm.
what
The old
did
the
you
old one.
have? The
Let's bring that in. So that is candle explorer. We'll go to the bake.
oh, okay.
So we'll select mesh ID polygroup. So you'll see we have 3 tiles. And we'll just, and there's other stuff that you want to do here, but I'm not going to do that right now. But just for this, you just want to make sure that mesh ID polygroup is selected. You're going to bake them. And we'll return. So you'll see instead of having 3 different materials, because remember on the last one we had like Fong 1, Fong 2, and Fong 3 for each one.
Mhm.
This time we only have one material with the tiles within that material.
Okay, I see now. I was confused because I didn't see the Udemy tiles on that last one beforehand, but I guess that was because it wasn't selected.
Yeah, so it
So it
had,
looked like that.
so you had 3 different materials, Fong 1, Fong 2, Fong 3.
No. I mean
Yeah.
from like the original demo. I just didn't realize the drop down wasn't open.
Oh yeah. But yeah, you have 3 Udemy
Okay.
tiles. So if I go back here and we go to UV editing and I select, which one was it? The one I can't see it. That one. You'll see it's split across 3 different tiles. 1, 2, and
Right.
3. Yeah. So this way is just easier because you'll have one material instead of having 3 materials.
So how do we plan on? Are you planning on just like making each one of those candles their own like group to put into Substance, and then just making them like candle 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. in the materials, or
So
how do you plan on doing that? Just so, like for organization's sake, when we get into Unreal.
my understanding of this particular scene is that nothing moves in the scene. No one interacts with it at all.
Right.
So I was just going to export this entire scene and texture it as one, and then import it into Unreal. And then it would essentially be one material for everything here.
Okay. So going forward, should we look into doing that for other stuff as well?
That's how I've been doing it this whole time, because you could, and especially if stuff doesn't move, like if no one's interacting with this, you would be able to import this whole thing as it is into Unreal and not have to place it. Like it'll just import and drop into the world depending on the pivot points, assuming that they were set up correctly.
Right.
And then you won't have to place it or do anything. You just import it in as one. It'll be one object in your content drawer. However, that's what I was saying. You could double click, each thing and select it that way too. But being that no one's interacting with this, that it doesn't even really matter if it's one thing or not. You could just drop it in and be done with it. So my plan for this specific scene was to just grab all of these. Once I'm done with the UVs on them, grab them all and then bring them into Substance and just assign everything in one go.
Okay. So
Something funky going on there. No, maybe not.
So I'm trying to think of how. So I think it'd probably be best for us to get together all the textures at some point and everything we have modeled basically put into a layout in Maya and then split those up by like their sets. Do you think that would be a good idea?
What do you mean?
So like how you have all those objects in one scene and you're just gonna put them all together and then texture them all as a group.
Mm-hmm.
Should we get together and do that for everything else that's not moving in the film?
So basically, however the modelers assembled their scenes, that's how I'm going to do it. So some like so Sophie, for example, would put together her everything she did, and like so like the bedroom, for example, was like assembled as a room. If it's assembled that way, I'll just grab that whole room and then do it that way. If it's like really big, you know, maybe it won't make sense to do it that way. Maybe you'd want to break it down into smaller chunks, you know, maybe do like all the dressers in one, or I don't know, however you want to break it down. For me, like if it's manageable within a Substance scene, because if you bring too much into Substance, it's not going to like it too. But if it's manageable, I'll just do it all in one. The thing to remember though is if say you do an entire room, right? But then something you didn't like something, you would have to, instead of just changing that one aspect, you would have to re-export everything from Substance again. So it just depends on how you prefer to work. The end result is not going to matter. It's just like how you would prefer to do it.
Okay.
So I try to break it up into like medium-ish large pieces, but like stuff that like maybe I'll have to like tweak a lot. Like glass, for example, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do the glass separate, just so like if I like the way one thing works, I don't have to like change it. But again, it's not even a big deal because if you're going into Substance anyway to change the glass, like you could just reassign the whole texture. So it's really just like, you know, how you want to do it, you know.
Okay. I didn't know if it was gonna affect like how the outcome of the textures were, like if it would affect them like pretty decently or not, because I know you were talking about that last week.
So
in terms of ray tracing, I think is what it was.
No, it was ambient occlusion.
Yeah.
So when you go, Substance will actually do ambient occlusion maps, where it'll add like, so say this was on a table, it'll add that like sort of ambient occlusion shadow down there, which, you know, you would want like, if we're ray tracing, you'll still get good shadows and stuff like that. But ambient occlusions just sort of helps, you know, things sort of pop and step out, like stand out from like, you know, like
I
the
see what you're
shadows,
saying.
you know what I mean? And if you do them separately, it won't be able to calculate that ambient occlusion map.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit more because I was kind of concerned because I know I've modeled a few things that I didn't put into like a bigger scene, and I'm sure other people have too. So I didn't know if that would be like if it would make like a difference to the point where it's noticeable or if it's something we can work around.
I think it depends on the shot.
Mhm.
It is noticeable. How noticeable will depend on the camera.
Okay. Because I want to say, like obviously all the hero objects are like their own thing because we're going to be moving those or interacting with those.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd say stuff that's sitting on tables and like stuff that'll be close to the camera. Like let's take for example the shot of like like the answering machine shot or the one where she's like lighting the candle or whatever where it's like really close up.
mhm.
You'd probably want to do all of that stuff together just so you get accurate ambient occlusion maps and everything exists cohesively in one sort of environment, if that makes sense.
It does. So in that case, the tape recorder from the police station will definitely want to put on a table or some sort
Yeah,
and
that
texture
police
that
station.
together.
I was just because I think I have those files on my computer.
Mhm.
I was just gonna bring that whole room in because it's a pretty simple scene. There's not much in it, There's like a clock, the answering machine, some odds and ends, but there's not a lot in the scene. So that would be an example of something that I would just kind of do the whole room.
Including the hero objects like the tape recorder and the cigarette.
Yeah, not so things that don't move, I should say.
Okay.
So like all of the props essentially, like the table, the chair, the tape recorder, the glass, the ashtray,
But
all that stuff.
the tape recorder does move.
The button moves, but the tape recorder
Right.
itself doesn't move.
So then how do we want to go about doing that then? Because I was planning to texture the tape recorder since we already have that. But if we want to just do it as one set, then I'll hold off on that until we get the
If
rest
you
of
do
the
it,
police.
do it with the table.
Okay.
Just because like that's the only two things that are really in the shot. Well, there might be other stuff in the shot, but whatever's in frame, do it with all the stuff that's in frame.
Okay. That's good. Okay, so then I will do that with the table. So then I'll go ahead and UV or finish UVing the tape recorder and the table for the police station. Um, Let me make sure there's nothing else. Shrine table, shrine, that's all gonna be together. Knife block. Do you think we'll have to worry about that as much at nighttime since a lot of that stuff will be kind of like covered in shadow or like shaded over?
I think you should do it whenever possible. If for
Okay.
some reason not doing it would just be so much easier for a variety of whatever reasons. It's not the end of the world. But I think having that ambient occlusion between the tape recorder and the desk, in this example, or anything that's just sitting, and again, it's stuff that's not moving because all of these textures are like baked in. So,
Right.
you know, if it's like you wouldn't do for the character because the character is being animated, all that stuff is not going to be baked in. But for the stuff that's baked in, you would want to do it that way. In my opinion, I think it just looks better.
Okay.
It looks, it helps build. It just makes
Yeah,
things
yeah,
look
yeah.
lived in. It doesn't look like something was just 3D placed on another object.
Okay. I will keep that in mind then. Might need to redo a few of these textures, but I'll check with that. I think, yeah, I'll check with that and see. Okay, cool.
Okay, so Is there anything that you think that I missed?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know why this is so stretched out, but I mean, I didn't really take time with the. Oh, you know what? I know why. The.
Oh, you
Where
didn't
is
leave
that?
out the UV map thing.
The all my stuff got reset because I wiped my drive and reinstalled stuff. Where's all my stuff? Where's all my stuff?
Are you looking for the properties?
Yeah.
It's go to the window tab up top and go to view. It should be properties.
Yeah,
Oh, you
it's
already have
here.
it?
It's here somewhere. I just don't know where. It should be. I think it's right here. It's just small. Hold on.
Oh, you don't have the.
Oh, I don't have anything on here. That's why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Yeah. It's the. Let's just add the cave wall to that. It's still the UV projection. I don't know why match per tiles the one that makes it work better. Also, this is not baked. Or no, I did bake it. But yeah, that was the reason for that.
It's a nice design for a candle holder.
It's just rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the Stone Ages.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. I mean, I think like we said before, the big priority is going to be them just UVing it and getting it ready for import into substance. I think all that other stuff on the backhand's more just like you, me, Kira.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just this was an easy scene to do. This is actually pretty time consuming because you have to basically go through everybody's hierarchy and like basically reorganize it. You'll have to merge surfaces, like combine surfaces a lot, or separate surfaces depending on how the modeler assembled it. So yeah, depending on the complexity of the scene, like this is a really simple one. It was just 3 pieces, but like some of the other ones, it could be a lot of work. So just be prepared for that. And yeah, you'll want to do it like in a way that makes sense. You know, if something opens, say it's like a drawer that you know opens, obviously that can't be its own surface. It can't be combined, so that'll have to be its own sort of group to allow that drawer to just move out independent of like the rest of the dresser or whatever. So you'd have to do it kind of that way. So yeah, you just kind of plan it out in your head, like, okay, like I want this group, this group, this group to be present, but like I'll need to split these into 2 groups because this piece actually moves. If it doesn't move, then it doesn't matter, you know, but stuff like that.
Cool. I think. Let me know. Well, I guess we're going down the list. I think before we get to the living room, like I have some shelving that I want to put in for that, and then we can throw knickknacks in there. So I'd rather do that before, so we can bring those in too.
Oh, another reason why you'd want to do it as a complete scene as much as possible is because in the material, like the brush that we're using, when you use the shadow function, it'll then apply to like, so take the shelves for example. It's in the pantry. You know how they're like kind of shelves and then the wall. If you did the shelf separately from the wall, then you wouldn't get that continuation of a shadow, you know, in the corners on the wall and on the shelf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that would be another reason why you'd want to do them together to get that that continuation of the shadow and stuff like that.